So run all the statements inside the if block, inside these opening and closing curly braces, gets to the end of the curly brace after running all these statements, and it hits the else, and it's like, wait a minute, I just had a true value from the above if, so don't do whatever statements are inside the else block. Okay, so it gets to here, it's like true value, sorry, skip to the end, and it just continues on with the code. Okay, the final level of if statements, if blocks I should say, that we have is the if. We have first the if statement. Oh, and also, just so you know, I mean it's fairly obvious, but I'm just going to say it anyway. You can't have an else statement without an attaching if. I don't think that will work actually. Let's just give it a test run. Maybe it does. If I put several spaces in there. Okay, actually, because I just remember, because PHP ignores whitespace, this to PHP, even though to us it looks like there's a massive gap and it shouldn't work, this to PHP, with all the space, actually looks to it like this, because it ignores whitespace. But if we have, for instance, an echo, I'm just spacing it out actually, I'll do it like this. If we have an echo here, I'm pretty sure we'll get a parse error. Yeah, we will. It says parse error on line 54. If we go to 54, we can see there's an else there, and that's because there's no if. So we can't have anything between the if and the else, okay? And for that reason, we can't have an else without an if, okay? You can have ifs by themselves, as we demonstrated here, yeah, but you can't have elses by themselves, because you've got to have the value from the if to determine whether to run the else or not. Because remember, the else only runs if the value from if is false. So if it doesn't have any value from an if that for some reason doesn't exist because you haven't put one there, it won't work. It will just throw a parse error like we got here. And if I show, now it's working because we've removed the echo statement. Okay, so now we have the most advanced type of if block that you'll ever get, which is still, I mean, really pretty easy to understand. We have the if statement, we have the else if statement, and we have an else statement. I'm just going to talk about this now. So first, we can see here, we have if var1 evaluates to true, then run all the statements inside this block. But what happens is, because we got this else if here, if var1 evaluates to false, it gets to the end of the closing curly brace of the if, because it's like, wait a minute, evaluates to false, skip all the statements, get to the end block, hits this else if, and it's like, hey, wait a minute, the value from the previous if evaluated to false, which means I should run this else if, because it's an else if, okay? Just so you know, the else if is different to the else though. The else will run no matter what, so long as the value from the above if, like here, so long as the value from this if evaluates to false, the else will run no matter what. Here, this won't run no matter what. It's just like this is basically like doing this, okay? But actually, the only difference is that if this evaluates to true, it will run. If this evaluates to true, sorry, it will run these statements inside this if block. And then, because it's not an else if statement, it will run these ones as well if they are true. But with an else if, what happens is if these evaluate to true, it will run these statements, and then it will skip the else if and of course the else, okay? Because the else if says, wait a minute, the value from the above if was true, so skip this, and then it hits this one. It's like, no, sorry, value was true, skip this, and then the else it says, no, the value was true, skip that. So in this block, only one of these sort of inner blocks will be run, because in this case, if var1 evaluates to false, it will go to this one. Else if will say, yep, okay, the value from the above if was equal to false, so I'll check this one. But var2 will evaluate to false, and so it will get on to next else if. It will say, okay, the value from the above if slash else if evaluated to false. So run this test, run this condition, and it checks sum3, and because sum3, if we go up here, has a boolean value true, that will evaluate to true, and then it will run the statements inside this else if, and then it will hit the else, and it will say, hey, wait a minute, the value from the above else if slash if was equal to true, so don't run me. And if equally, if we had, for instance, sum2 here, it would hit this one, it would say, okay, this is false, don't run this. Wait a minute, the value from the above if was equal to false, so run this condition. Check the condition. Hey, wait a minute, sum2 is equal to true. Run these statements, and it will get to the else if. It will be like, hey, wait a minute, no, the value above was true, so don't even bother checking the condition. And the else will be like, no, sorry, the value is true, skip this, okay? And that, very simply put, is how if blocks work, okay? Let's just take a look at, oh, sorry guys, I don't think I demonstrated the else ones working. So here, this will evaluate to false, so it will execute this else. And here, this will evaluate to true, so this won't output. So what we should see is var1 has a value that evaluates to false, and sum1 has a value that evaluates to true. Let's save, refresh, and var1 has a value that blah 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 blah, and as expected, that's what it outputs. And now finally onto this if else block. This evaluates to false, this evaluates to false, this evaluates to true, so run this, and it says, as expected, sum3 has a value that evaluates to true, okay? If I change this to var3, for instance, it will run the else statement, as you can see. None of the variables in this if block have values that evaluate to true, okay? Now, one thing I just realized as I was getting into the if else block is that something might not be quite so clear. In an else if block, you don't have to have the else. So actually, something like this, if var1, I'll just echo blah for this, just for this one, because I don't want to have to write everything out. Else if sum4 I'll do for a change. And echo blah2. Okay, this will work. You don't have to have that else if you have an else if. So to sum up, basically, you can have ifs by themselves, like here. You can have ifs and elses by themselves. You can have if, else ifs, and elses all together, or you can just have ifs and else ifs alone by themselves. Okay? And again, like the else, you can't have an else if by itself. So, for instance, this will give a compile error. Okay? Sorry, not compile error. What am I talking? Parse error. Line 86, well, it says it's on 80, yeah, sorry, it is 86, because that's where the else if is, and there's no above if, so that won't work. And if we take it away, it should echo out blah 2. There we go. And, oh, I put the line break before the full stop. But, oh well, okay, so you guys get the idea. Now, there's just one more thing. Let me check the time. Youch. Okay. You know, I'll cover this in another tutorial. I'll cover it like in like 5 minutes or something, because I don't want to make this over 20 minutes. So, I'll see you guys later. Over and out.